Today's pre-race availabilities for the Goodyear 400 with two incredible drivers and the drivers who produced the greatest finish in the history of this racetrack 20 years ago, and that is Ricky Craven and Kurt Busch. 2/1000ths of a second to the finish line, one of the most incredible races in this track or NASCAR's history. Ricky, walk us through your memories of that incredible finish.
Nice to see everybody again. A lot of old friends. It's great. So my recollection, two things. I think everybody's seen the video of the finish enough to understand all there is about that. The race is over. I'm in victory lane with my kids and, of course, celebrating. And I'm consumed with having won at Darlington. And as a driver, that's a badge of honor. Somebody taps me on the shoulder after an interview with Dick Berggren and says, Kurt's on his way over. Suggested Kurt was marching across the garage area. And I thought, now these are the very early innings for Kurt. He could be a little salty. And I was thinking, okay, I might get a Ross Chastain. He gets within 20 feet of me, and he's all by himself, and he goes, that was awesome. And he sticks his hand out, and we celebrated, and because of that, I think he cemented our friendship. So that's where I want to start, because that's the most important part to me 20 years later. When you wake up Saturday or Sunday morning, in my world, it's okay to despise all the people you compete against. I mean, I really believe that when you get on the track, that it's okay to dislike them. But some of my greatest friends are here at the racetrack. And we opposed each other week after week. And this guy's become one of them.
Kurt, you know, what made that such an awesome finish? I mean, because, you know, generally race car driver finishes second place. They're not smiling from ear to ear. But I saw the video. You were smiling from ear to ear, and you're still talking about it 20 years later. What made that finish so awesome from your perspective?
To me, it is that friendship that came about from it immediately after. But leading into it, the 10 laps before that finish, he had no idea. Ricky Craven had no idea that I was starting to run out of power steering fluid, but I never really wanted that to be part of the story. I was just going to wrestle the car. I was going to get to victory lane, and then I was going to talk to the engine department about things afterwards. And each lap that went by, Ricky's car is just getting bigger and bolder in the mirror. And he called me with 3 to go and thought he was just going to do the normal. Racers are supposed to race the racetrack. You don't race each other. There has to be give and take on such a treacherous racetrack. The track too tough to tame. The lady in black. Like if somebody's got to run and you were alongside of me, you were 99% supposed to make that pass. And I said, well,
that's exactly what I thought.
Yep. I'm like, this is what he's thinking. So I'm going to surprise him, because now I got to pull out tricks out of my racing toolbox to try to block him or to confuse him and to try to still preserve the lead that I had. And we went down into one. He didn't know it. We both slammed each other up into the fence, and I'm like, see, buddy, it's on. And when the cars landed and we didn't quite completely lose control, I gassed it up, jacked him up with his rear tires were off the ground. I set him back down, and then I just took off and ran. And I just took off and ran down the back straightaway. I went through 3 and 4 on the high side, thinking that would be easier without the power steering to keep my momentum. And then he had a great run through 3 and 4, and he knew this time not to go into 1. And I'm like, all right, I think I got him covered for another half a lap. All right, so we came off turn 2, and I was still behind on steering and got the car to set. It wasn't like a block to the inside. It was just I'm behind on steering, but maybe it was to confuse him. And now I'm going into turn 3, and I need to go low. I need to go low, just to confuse him again, because that will then force him up high where he wasn't the lap before, because that's where I was. I went down into turn 3, and the car just never turned. It just went up. I had to lift extra. I had to grab more wheel. I went back to gas, just trying to, this is last lap. I just got to get to the line. And when I pulled it back to the right, the car just did this long wiggle. And then I was actually loose for a second without the power steering. And when it came off turn 4, the wheel went out of my hand straight into his door. And we locked together. And it's been great to tell the story so many times because you didn't know that I had the power steering issue. Right. You didn't know why I doored you like that. You thought that you came up into me. And there's been so much of this give and take and respect. And at the same time, both of us took the gloves off and went at it for 12 rounds with each other with no low blows, no big haymakers. It was just, we're going to wear each other down. And at the line, it was at 2,000ths of a second. I knew something special happened as soon as we crossed the line. I could just tell. There was something spiritual about it, and that's what's connected us for this many years.
Speaking of spiritual, I feel like there was a confession here because this is the first time in 20 years I've ever heard him admit that he hit me first. Okay? I've been asked, and if you look at 2 or 3 different views, you see 2 or 3 different perspectives. And
every perspective is so different. Yeah. I mean, I can change it to look in Photoshop that I won nowadays.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it brings me back great memories. Obviously, Kurt had a brilliant career, and I had a couple brilliant races. But the net of it is that 20 years later, we're still talking about it, and I think that's pretty cool. I think that's a reflection of all you, who I have a relatively clear understanding, having been with ESPN and Fox for 15 years, how hard your job is. But what you do feeds the fans, and the fans are the ones that really own this race. I mean, everywhere I go, if they've never met me, they want to talk about this race.
And if I can add to that, you know, our finish was the closest in history for many years, and then it was tied at Talladega, which is a track where you would expect those types of close finishes, not here. Yeah. And the media, the fans, and everyone still absorbs this, though, as the closest finish. It was almost like that Talladega 2011. Yeah, no, the Darlington story is way better.
You and I are deep thinkers. We've never had this conversation, right? We're deep, we're deep thinkers.
We've won this race 600 times.
But technically, just so we're on the same page, okay, as far as time, they might have matched our closest finish. But I talked to a few engineers that said because the average speed at Talladega is higher, the distance between first and second was more.
Further, yeah.
So we actually still have the closest finish.
Way to go, Goose.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know if it's important to anybody else, but it's pretty important to me.
Well, hopefully the lady in black hasn't lost that love and feeling.
Well, I'm sure we have some questions out here from the crowd. If you have a question, raise your hand. We're going to start with Ben. Go to Kelly.
Hey guys, Ben White, Fayetteville Observer. I'm just curious, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ricky. Do you have the 32 car that you do have?
I
right?
do.
Okay, yeah. Kirk, do you know where the car is that you drove? Did it just get put back in rotation?
Yeah, I would guess it was one of either chassis like 46 or 52. Like we had a really couple cool cars in 03 and 04. It's at Roush somewhere.
Okay, but Ricky, where is your car now?
I have my car. The short version of the story is that I had a bucket list of things I wanted to do after I retired, and some of them were kind of odd. For example, I wanted to go to a shareholder meeting, you know, and so I go to it would either be Bank of America or Duke because they're located in Charlotte. I go to a Duke shareholder meeting. I know nobody, but I see a guy that looks like Winston Kelly, and I go sit next to Winston, and we had a conversation. At the time, Winston was up to his neck in creating the NASCAR Hall of Fame in Charlotte, and we sat there for a few hours, and we talked about everything under the sun. And he said, that was a cool win, coolest win ever. And I said, yeah, you know, I have that car. That was given to me as a retirement gift. And he said, wow, would you consider putting it on loan with the Hall of Fame? And I said, done deal. I said, the idea of having it covered up it means nothing. You know, if you can't see it, it doesn't exist. And we shook hands, and I believe, and Winston's here, but I believe it was the first or among the first artifacts donated, and it was at the Hall of Fame for 12 years, and it's on its way to New England. You know, I'm trying to create something back home, and it's going to be an important part of that.
Kelly?
Kelly, CrownedRacer.com. I have a couple. First for Kurt. Over the years, there's been times where you've gotten really emotional talking about this race or this finish between you and Ricky. How much of that is because Darlington was a place that that victory never happened for you even after 03, right? Because 03 you would have thought, okay, he's going to get more chances, and it never happened, and here you are 20 years later, everybody still wants to talk about the one that you lost.
Yeah, it is part of the legend of finishing second in the closest finish ever, because I never came back and won. I've never had the chance to conquer this racetrack and to go to victory lane and put a portion of the story to bed. And whether it was, you know, me messing up on the track and getting, you know, too many Darlington stripes and a flat tire, whether there was an engine failure or a mistake on a restart, you know, this is one of my favorite places to run, and there might be statistics of the loop averages that show that this might have one of my top 5 loop averages as far as running position and pace. It's just a matter of always finding that last little puzzle piece to put it together, and this track changes every year so quickly because of the asphalt here in South Carolina. You know, those crystals, that little sparkly like shine you see as you drive up and down the roads, that's in this racing asphalt, and it just chews up the tires. And this place changes so quick every year. Goodyear brings back a different tire combo. There's a different aero package, a different car. I just haven't quite found the right combo to unlock the lady in black.
And for both of you, you both used the word friendship that developed after that finish. Would that have come naturally because you were bonded in a historic finish, or how much has also played into because it's over the years? Again, everybody wants to talk about it and connect you to, and this is a finish that's going to continue to be something that's talked about.
If I can start, I would say this. This was in spring of 03, and I was going through, you know, a battle with a rival driver during the summer of 03, and went up to New Hampshire and raced there for my first time in July of 03, and the crowd cheered beyond a normal driver introduction. And I went, what did I do? What went on? What happened? And it was his New England fans. It was the New Englanders. Everyone at New Hampshire Motor Speedway at the Magic Mile embraced me. And I'm like, wow, the connection of the race there in South Carolina. I'm a West Coast boy, and now I have all these New England fans. That's what made it more special to me behind the scenes.
That's cool. I had never heard that.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
That took a lot of your fans.
Yeah. I had several perspectives of Kurt, and one of the things that was very obvious to me sharing the racetrack with him is that he had a load of talent. And I mean, just every now and then a few drivers come along each generation, and they're remarkable behind the wheel of a race car. But he was very young. If you remember, both he and Kyle came onto the scene very young, and he may not remember this, but this is the beginning of me meeting Kurt outside the car. I think it was his rookie year. We were at Rockingham, and Terry and I were battling, Terry Labonte, and Kurt went 3 wide off of turn 2 at Rockingham, got into Terry and wrecked him.
Well, I had fresh tires. You guys were on old tires.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I didn't know that part. Okay. So the next week, wherever, and Kurt came in, and I said, "Did you go see Terry?" And he goes, "No, should I?" And I go, yeah, you should. And he goes, "Okay." I said, "Yeah, nobody wrecks Terry. He's just a great guy. And it didn't matter if he had new tires or not. Right?" So he goes, I don't see him. Next day he comes over, he goes, "We're good." And I go, "Yeah, okay." He goes, "We had a great conversation." Didn't start out great, had a great conversation. And to my knowledge, that was the end of it. But I only did that because when I came into the sport, there were a few drivers that reached out to me that were really good to me. Mark Martin crawled in the right side of the car and shook hands and said, "You belong here," and I never forgot it. And then years later, and particularly, you know, I mean, there's no doubt what I experienced with him walking across the garage by himself to celebrate with us was a very classy move. And so it cemented my opinion of him. And then as we go along, I transition to ESPN, and it's a whole new world. I have a completely different perspective, Kelly, of the drivers. And I watched Kurt grow. And he had some adversity. He never ducked it. He never ran from it. He overcame it. And the middle to late innings of his career, he became a very, very popular driver. And I don't know statistically. I studied pretty hard, but he won every year for several years. Like, he is in a very elite category of drivers. You know, he didn't win 10 races every year, but he won every year. And then the very end of it, you know, Kurt's sitting here today instead of wearing a helmet because of a concussion and an impact. And that connects him to me, and we've never really discussed it. Just a little bit yesterday, but we will, because life after racing can be very challenging. I mean, it can be more challenging than your driving career because it's a completely different application, particularly if you don't get to choose your timeout date or your expiration. I had 3 years of my life interrupted by several concussions in '97 racing for Rick Hendrick, and those were the most miserable 3 years of my life. And so all of those things have brought us together. But it started with him just taking a moment and being a class guy right here.
Go to Pete.
And that was not a paid testimonial?
I know, right?
Not yet, anyway, right?
Sunscreen.
Oh, you want sunscreen? I brought you a gift today, buddy.
Yeah. I texted him early this morning. I said, don't forget the sunscreen.
This is for the Maine guy, the guy from up in Maine. We're going to be outside a lot. I was like, I got your sunscreen, buddy.
Is that a friend?
Hey, Pete Iacobelli with the Associated Press. I've got a couple. Kurt, but touching on your health, how are you feeling now, and do you still hold out some hope that, you know, one day you'll get behind the wheel again here in NASCAR?
Yeah, I'm feeling much better, and the improvements that I've made, it's been tremendous, especially I would say February, March of this year. Being able to set aside the push to get to Daytona and not being able to make it. Now Tyler Reddick's the driver. You know, the sponsorship with Monster and Beast has grown, which was part of what I was working on doing behind the scenes. You know, Ty Gibbs has been a good kid that I've helped mentor a little bit. Bubba, you know, our whole team at 2311 has embraced me with a timeline or more of a space. And so it hasn't been that push. And the toughest part is my body's fatigue of going through physical therapy and having a day on, day off. Different things in my body now are much more sensitive with my arthritis, my gout, and it's tough to walk some days after therapy just with just my feet cramping up. So then when I try the simulator, now things are feeling different. So I'm just working through other steps to still keep pushing. And I just enjoy the sport. I enjoy my family here and doing different appearances with Monster. I was at Key West for the boat races last weekend and instead of hanging out in the rain in Dover. So there's some good decisions that are still being made around all of the sponsorship. And Toyota's been very helpful as well, doing fun things with them outside of a race car, but still doing car things.
But do you still want to get back behind the wheel?
I'm pushing, and that's where, the boat race, they just let me drive the boat. Hey, man, easy. They let me drive the boat back to the marina, and there's just it's all little things that keep adding up here.
And for both of you, I mean, you remember 20 years ago, Darlington's place in NASCAR wasn't as secure as it seems, the revival that's going on here now. do you feel like you showed what this track is capable of? You reminded people of that, and that it's helped get to the point where we're celebrating NASCAR history year after year here, along with the Southern 500.
I feel like we all did it as a community. I know exactly what you're saying. I thought we were going to lose Rockingham like we did, and we were going to lose Darlington. When it went down to one date and it got moved to the spring, it was like, whoa, no. And I think this whole community, everybody, from NASCAR, the media, team owners, drivers, sponsors, have all jumped in on a throwback weekend. It might not even be their logo on the car, but they're still accepting the fact that there's the past that has to be symbolized. And I think we've all done this as a community, and that's what makes this place so special.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I also think, you know, maybe there was a period where, you know, we lost Wilkesboro, we lost Rockingham. Whether Darlington was on life support or not, I'm not sure. I do believe that Kurt and I sort of stimulated Darlington, but what really brought it back to life, if it was on life support, was the throwback weekend. And it has created a uniqueness that separates it from all other tracks. And so to that end, Darlington probably exists forever in my mind. The same way Wrigley Field, Fenway Park, Lambeau Field, like there's a place, there needs to be a place for Darlington because of the historical value. And I mean, it was only 24 hours ago that we saw an excellent finish. And if you want to continue to grow the sport, you have to grow the sport organically. This track creates some of the greatest organic racing that we see all year long. And it's just a combination of a lot of things. Now, nobody in their mind, no investment firm would ever consider building a track like this. But maybe they should, you know, because it's, again, it's such a unique creation. And you go back to what Kurt and I, so Kurt is in the early innings, second inning of his career. I'm in the 8th or 9th inning of my career. The year before we had our great finish, I'm on the pole. I wake that morning convinced I'm finally going to win at Darlington. And Jeff Gordon, Steve Park, and I were battling away. Jeff sort of backs off when we get into traffic. Steve and I are going at it, and we wreck going through lap traffic. I punished myself for 12 months on how poorly I managed the race. The next year, I was average at best in practice. But I think I knew how to lose here. I absolutely knew how to lose races here. And that enhanced my ability to win. And that's what makes this place so crazy difficult. Like, winning here is different than winning anywhere else because it takes so many different elements. Yeah.
Well, gentlemen, I really appreciate you taking the time today, and I really want to thank you on behalf of Darlington Raceway and NASCAR for being such tremendous ambassadors for Darlington Raceway and our sport as a whole. So thank you again for the great memories, and have fun out there with the fans today.
Thank you. It's an honor to be able to wave the green flag today. So are you going to go 0.02 of a second before me?
No, it's all about you today, buddy.
You're on the left. You're on the left. You're going to block all the rocks hitting us.
No, this is your day.
It's our day, buddy. Yes, sir. Thank you again.
It's been fun. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Matt. All right, let's get the sunscreen on.